Please help me welcome to the stage Jon Rudnitsky, Hallie Meyers-Shyer, and Reese Witherspoon. Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Have a seat. Any seat you'd like. Welcome.
Any seat.
Any seat except for mine.
Okay.
So reviews came out this morning. I don't know if you've read them or if you guys don't read them.
I don't read reviews.
No?
No.
What is that noise-making device?
That means the reviews were great.
Yay! Applause. I actually want to read one, which I guess will lead into the whole talking about the story here. The unquestionable feel-good movie of 2017. Have you heard that? Pete Hammond, Deadline Hollywood. Congratulations on writing an incredible story.
Thank you.
This is, Hallie, this is your writing debut, yes? Directing debut, and film debut in general? Or,
it's my debut. Yeah.
So where did the idea come from? Where did this originate?
It came from a bunch of different places. I had the character of Alice in my head for a long time, of this woman who had sort of made a lot of decisions early in life and then started questioning them, and that kind of post-separation, post-divorce time in a woman's life. And I had a friend who had 3 guys move into her family's house growing up, and I just thought that was such an interesting idea and a great setting for a comedy. So I sort of put this character in that scenario, and all came from there.
Huh. Okay. So was there in real life, was there the sexual tension that?
No, I actually don't. I don't know anything about what actually happened. It is a fictional film.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Right. And Reese and Jon, how did the two of you get on board the film yourselves?
I read the script and I just loved it. I thought it was such an original idea, and the idea that a decision you make at 25 isn't necessarily the right decision for the rest of your life. And I think a lot of people are at crossroads at certain times and trying to figure out chapter 2 of their life. And so I met with Hallie, and she was wildly impressive and had a great vision for it, and we went ahead.
Jon, what about you?
I mean, same. I read the script and was blown away, and it's also about 3 young filmmakers who move out to LA hoping to make it, and me, Nat, and Pico can all relate, obviously, to that. So I was honored to be a part of it.
Jon came in on our first day of casting,
yeah,
which is very special.
Really?
Yeah.
And so none of you knew each other beforehand?
No, not really.
I'd heard of you.
We knew who Reese was.
Yeah.
Oh, you have?
I think I'd seen you in something.
Yeah.
What'd you think of me?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Right, so I guess, Reese, you've been acting since, what, you were 14, 15?
Yeah, 14. Yeah.
And so with hits, gosh, Pleasantville, still one of my all-time favorites from when I was younger. Cruel Intentions, American Psycho, Legally Blonde, Sweet Home Alabama. This is the Legally Blonde section over here. Sweet Home Alabama, Walk the Line, with which you won the Academy Award. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
So I guess you've been putting out a movie a year since you were a teenager.
I guess so.
That's crazy.
And so you were a child star and then went to be an adult star. How did you navigate that complexity without sort of going a little bit typically child star crazy?
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't aware that I wasn't really like a big child star. I worked in movies, and my parents were very adamant that I stay in high school and then I went to college. So I didn't really start working with any kind of regularity until I was about 19. I got a big audition when I was at Stanford, and then I had to drop out to do the movie. And then I got another movie, and I got another movie, and so it just started working out. But I thought I was going to be a doctor. I'm not the kind of person who would move to LA and live in a car because
your parents are doctors, right?
Yeah, my parents are both doctors. Yeah.
Yeah. So did they want you to be doctors? Because my parents were always like, you can act with a computer science degree. You can't do computer science with an acting degree, which was the only advice I really ever listened to, which landed me here. So thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, they wanted me to be a doctor.
Really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they still want me to be a doctor.
Did they call you up after they see your movies and like, Reese, we really wish that you had become a brain surgeon?
Less after the movies, more like after I do a talk show and I talk about them a lot. They're like, really wish you wouldn't talk about us all that much, but they're good sports.
And you grew up in the South, right?
I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, yeah.
Oh yeah, South's the South.
And my dad was in the military, so we're all over the place.
How'd you kick the Southern accent?
Oh, well, I got advice when I was about 18. I went into a casting office and they said, "You're never going to get work with that terrible accent." And so I watched a lot of TV shows, like 90210. And I would watch the way that they would articulate, and I would copy them like that. So really, it's Shannon Doherty.
Oh, wow.
Got it down.
Never
Joy
guessed
Spelling, Jen Garth. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Spelling.
That's
Never
crazy.
heard
So your
of
parents, what's that?
We're just going through the
whole
entire cast of 90210.
The original cast.
Yeah.
And John, okay, so dude, SNL. Like,
Yeah.
People dream about being on that show.
Yeah.
How did you make the crossover from I guess sketch comedy TV over into this movie business?
Well, I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to even audition for this had it not been for SNL. That kind of helped, put me in a room with Hallie and Nancy to begin with, which was pretty crazy to even have an opportunity to be considered for this movie. But my background is in acting. I've been doing theater my whole life, and I studied theater at USC. So I really have always wanted to act. I just happen to do comedy in addition to that.
Happen to do comedy.
I happen to do comedy. Yeah.
He's not from the Midwest, so we're not sure where
the
that accent
Do I
comes
have an
from.
accent?
He's
It's
not.
like this weird Michael Keaton accent.
Is it?
Or
Oh,
Jack
I don't know what I'm
Nicholson,
doing.
yeah. Jack
Is it? Okay.
Happen to do comedy.
Oh, comedy. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know.
I don't know.
Do I do it all the time, or is it just sometimes?
No, he does lots of different voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
He's
can't
a
quite tell.
comedian.
Yeah, there's just certain words that I just like. Like I'd like to say about, even though I'm
not
from
sure.
Jersey, but like it's more fun to say a boat, and I'm going to the bar. Like I'm going to the bar. Like why wouldn't you choose to say it that way? You could just take what you like from every accent, I guess. Yeah.
Well, you go park the car at Harvard Yard.
There you go.
Right. And so Hallie now turned 30 pretty recently. Yes. I don't know. I don't want to out you here.
No,
at
that's
your
fine.
age.
I'm good with it.
I bring this up because you make me feel really insignificant with my own life decisions. Being older than that and having seen now what you have accomplished, I guess it makes me feel like I've had a few wrong choices when I was 25. But you started your own acting career when you were like 4, yeah?
Well,
Ish.
it's funny. I'm being asked that a lot, but I was in no way a child actor. My parents forced me to be in their films, basically. But I'm very grateful because now it's kind of like I have this, personal connection and a little bit of a photo album. But no, I was always on their sets, so they'd throw me in the movie. But it wasn't because I wanted to be an actor.
And who are your parents?
Nancy Meyers, the producer of our movie, and my dad is Charles Shyer, who was her partner for a
Long
long
time.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, the two of them have produced many things, such as The Intern, Holiday, It's Complicated, Parent Trap, Baby Boom, Private Benjamin, Father of the Bride, and if you've heard of any of those, came from this family lineage. And now, the apple has not fallen far from the tree. This movie is
Thank you.
absolutely incredible, and you're standing on your own. So thank you
Thanks.
for continuing this. And it is such a fun movie. Was it as fun to write as? I guess the question is, was it as fun to write as it was for us to watch?
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Got a little
I
overexcited.
found it
That is a
very,
literal mic drop.
It was
on,
very fun
Google.
to make the movie. Writing is, I love writing. It's where I identify most in the filmmaking process is with writing. In my case, I don't have a writing partner, so you're completely alone with these characters, and there's so much fun to be had there. But it's really challenging writing a movie and layering your characters, and I think I did probably upwards of 30 drafts of this script. So.
Wow.
Well, I did 15 on my own, then I gave it to my mom, then another 15 came out of that. So,
Is that scary, giving it to your mom? I'd be like, ooh.
Just hands it back with a big
No,
red
because
X on it.
she's the only person I give it to, so it's not like I'm getting it. I just, I gave it to her, and she has such thoughtful, good notes, and just, I think good notes are just raising the right questions. She never said, you should do this, you should do that. It would just say, why did they break up? Why did it just raising those questions that make you go home and think for so long, like, oh my God, why? I don't know, and I have to figure this out. So I don't even remember the question, but yeah, writing is a lot of work and super rewarding.
Was it fun?
It was fun. I love to write. There's this great Joan Didion quote, like, I don't know what I'm thinking until I write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And I really identify with that. Sometimes you just don't know how you feel about something until you just write it down.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, as someone who writes because I have to answer emails, I appreciate someone who does it for recreation.
Yeah.
I guess where you grew up in the industry, you grew up around very successful parents and being on sets all the time. Obviously, you have written a maturity into this film that I wouldn't have expected from someone, I guess, as young as you are, from a certain perspective. So,
Yeah.
Where did that maturity come from? Where did your larger view on like relationships and life happen?
I think for me, I was trying a little bit to honor the medium of film, which I respect so much, and I wanted to, film is forever, and I didn't want to write about trivial issues. So for me, the themes of family and divorce and starting over are important. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of why I think Alice's story in Crossroads is a little bit weightier and realer than the issues of sort of, which guy, and the kind of like 20-something story.
Right. Yeah, and I enjoy in this that it doesn't take the normal like slapstick kind of silly turns that rom-coms, romantic comedies do in most cases. So it was a pleasant surprise, and I think that's why, of course, today the reviews are coming out and they're all very positive. So you've done a good job there. Yeah. Regarding the characters, I guess, so we saw in the preview there's lots of other people in it. Obviously, it's not just the three of these people here, or the two of them and a director. Michael Sheen is Alice's husband. Candice Bergen is Alice's mom. We got Lake Bell's a wonderful addition. How did all of these wonderful people come to get attached to this first-time director's film?
Well, casting is such an important part of the process because you're sort of handing your character off to somebody and letting them make it their own. So it's such an important thing, and we thought really deeply about this, and it was a really nice mix, I think, of newcomers and seasoned actors, and I think that mix added something fresh to the equation. It really felt like there was different generations in this movie, and I have to say, we sent it to these people, and sometimes you think you'll never hear back or what, and a lot of them responded, and my mom had worked with Lake Bell before, so we knew her, but the rest of the actors in this movie were just good old-fashioned sending them the script and hoping they'll say yes.
You have to realize as an actor, you don't get a lot of scripts where you get to play a character anymore. Like,
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty rare. And to have a fully fleshed out character with a beginning and a middle and an end, or a real journey, or real lines to say, or humor is really an anomaly these days. I mean, you're honestly just reacting to a green screen and going, oh. Wait, and then you're like to the director, like, what am I staring at? And he's like, I'm not sure, we're gonna put it in later, but just give me like 6 different reactions to it. And you're like, so most actors are starving to do something really meaningful and deep.
I guess I didn't realize that the bad guy of the green screen was never preconceived beforehand. But
Sometimes they are, and sometimes they have no idea what's coming next.
So working with the Three Stooges, was there any parallel there, by the way?
No.
No? Why 3 guys? I'm sidetracking here. Why 3 guys? Why not 1? Why not 2?
I think good things come in threes. It just was always going to be a trio for me. I don't know.
Fair. Okay, so back to
Yeah.
my original thought.
It was always 3.
So this is a little bit of a spoiler. Some of you have seen the movie. We screened it here last night. So at the end, I was pleasantly surprised to find that at the end of the story, Alice doesn't choose any of the men, which is great.
They just gasped.
You,
Oh no! What? Imagine that.
you don't need a man to be happy. And it's refreshing to see a romantic comedy where, like, the female protagonist finds happiness on her own. John, I'd choose you.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people come up to me and they go, what about John? What about the guy? That John
I
guy?
did
Good.
think that you were gonna go for John. That Alice
So
would
many
go
people
for John.
say that to me too. It's
Yeah, I'm
she's
writing a
thinking of
sequel where
somebody
we
her
end
own
up
age.
together. Home again.
Still home again. Yeah. So I guess that is one of the most powerful things about this movie, that I feel every woman is portrayed as a strong woman. Even like the smaller supporting characters they're all, none of them are typically like your frail, weak sort of women, that are often portrayed. Was this a conscious choice when you were writing it? And I guess for you, Reese, was this something you noticed in the script that attracted you to the role?
Yeah, I don't play a lot of weak women. I don't really know any weak women.
Yeah.
My mother used to always say, if you want to be a woman, you better be tough. And that's the only kind of women I know. So that's
Yeah.
what Hallie writes. And
Yeah, I don't know. I also don't know any weak women. It wouldn't have come naturally to me to write that. She's vulnerable, that's for sure, and she gains strength by the end of the film, and self-confidence, and feeling, like she's going to be okay by the end. But no, I don't know. Never. I wasn't consciously thinking this is a strong woman. I just thought this is a woman,
And so
women are
you've also,
strong.
yeah, I agree. Very well written. And so Erica Oldie?
Yeah, Oldie.
Produced this as well. So she's only been producing for, just a few years
Yeah.
too. She's a new producer. And I was reading up on her too, and she produces films primarily made by women as well. So how did you find her? How did she become attached?
After I'd written the script, we gave it to our agents who wanted to help us get the financing for this movie, and Erica was the right person, I think, because her whole company is based around women's stories, and I think she has a particular affiliate, like she loves these kinds of movies, and she wanted to tell women's stories and help female directors, so it was a really nice pairing, and she's a young woman herself, and it was great, yeah.
That's wonderful. And so Reese, a little side question, I guess, over the last few years, so you've been getting into producing yourself, and you produced Big Little Lies, which now you have a bajillion Emmy nominations for that, which is wonderful. What made you want to get into producing?
well, about 5 years ago, I read probably the worst script I've ever read in my entire life, and the part for a woman was just absolutely dreadful, opposite a guy. And I called my agent and I said, well, this is just a piece of crap, and I don't want to do this. And she said, every actress in Hollywood wants this part. And I thought, we deserve better than these parts. And so I was like, I can either start complaining about it, which isn't going to do any good, or I can do something about it. So I started buying books and turning them into movies, and my first two were Wild and Gone Girl. And so I just started from there and creating parts for other women as well. And that's sort of been the next chapter of my life.
So do you enjoy performing still more, or are you aiming more towards the producer side?
No, I like being an actor. I really love it. It's my first love, and I get on set and I get all excited.
She's so good at it.
I like it and I enjoy it, but I love producing, and I'm really a big reader, so I read a ton, and then I kind of have an eye for what is actually going to get made and what's cinematic, because not every book is things can be beautifully written, but just it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think those two things together really help create a successful producing career.
You should produce a movie you star in where you play a doctor, and it would satisfy everything.
I should.
Yes.
Great.
Be a brain surgeon. Thanks, Mom. So going back, I guess, to the casting, you have two wonderful children that you cast, Lola Flannery and Eden Grace Redfield.
Yeah.
Is it harder to find, to cast roles for children or to cast roles for adults? And specifically for these two kids, how did you find it?
Yeah. It's really hard to cast children because, their parents rehearse it with them. So it's hard sometimes. When I was watching the auditions, it would be like they've had a very specific way of saying it in a specific rhythm, and you feel like you might have to undo that a lot. But these two kids, you could just feel that there was something supernatural, not supernatural, but very natural about them.
They were sort of ghostly.
Well, the little one caught my eye, honestly, because she was Reese's twin. And we were like, this is a little Reese. And then she happened to have this fantastic comedic timing and be, super unique. And Lola, I really wanted somebody in that part that could play the comedy of being anxious, but you wouldn't actually be super worried for her. You just felt like this was a stage she was going to come out of. And I think Lola has kind of an inner happiness to her. She's very sweet, and the sweetness comes through. And I think they just both were so natural. You know, they didn't feel like child actory. They just, you know.
Yeah, and Jon,
Yeah.
I guess your character, you and Lola have great on-screen chemistry.
Yeah.
Were you like that offset or off camera too?
Yeah, we really hit it off. We would sing Adele a lot together. We were tight. We all got along. It was really one big family, almost instantaneously, I would say, because the guys actually ended up living together
Yeah,
during the
they
making of
lived
the
together.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
decided when they got cast they would all live together.
They're
I was
very
like,
method.
I don't
Yeah,
think
you
this
didn't think
is
that
gonna
would be such a
work
good
out.
idea.
That was a bad idea.
But it turned out all right. It did. It turned out okay.
Are you still speaking now?
Well, yeah, a little bit. No, we are. We're talking. We are.
So-
Well, Nat's busy working
Yeah.
around the globe.
Still owes you some rent.
But no, we all talk. We all love each other a great deal.
And then yeah, I guess you touched on family. I guess that the whole cast does to me seem like a family, like we're watching this family literally and figuratively on screen. When was the first time that everybody sat down together, that everybody met? Like was there one point when everybody got together to?
The rehearsals
Yeah,
and costume
rehearsals.
fittings and the
Yeah. Everyone, yeah, there's a lot of intertwined relationships in this movie, so we did a lot of rehearsals, you know, with the different, like Jon and Lola, and then Jon and Reese Reese and Nat. You know, it's like everyone has a different relationship in this movie, so we all got together and talked about those different dynamics, and I think that's when it first started gelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you realize that you had something really special that was kind of bubbling up here?
That's a great question. You know, I think there was a really great energy on the set. It felt like we were making a feel good. I thought when we were making the movie, you know, it had a nice energy, and you know, my mom was the producer, which added another family element. It really, literally was a family. Reese's kids would come by, and Jon's parents, and you know, it was fun. Why is that so funny?
I had to work on my lines with somebody. So. Yeah. The tone of the movie really matched the tone on set, honestly.
Yeah.
It really did.
Oh, that's incredible. I guess I would have loved a bit of fly in the room. I guess you don't do a table read or anything for the movies, do you?
I
Or
think
for
we
this?
did, didn't
Did
we?
you?
Did
we do a table read?
I feel like we rehearsed
One of
scenes.
y'all came in, somebody was auditioning, it goes, I read this with all my friends.
Nat.
Oh,
last
Nat
night.
did a table
Nat
read.
did his own reading
His
at
own
his house
table
with
read.
actor friends. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's amazing. Why didn't you invite any of us?
Yeah.
I know.
He was like, well, we all just debated about this word that none of us could say. And we were like, what was the word? He was like, CHAISE. And we were like, I was like, oh, Shez. And then Jon was like,
Schwooze. It's a
and then
schwooze.
what do you call it?
A shade.
A shade. A shade.
I was like, it's a Shez. And he's like, it's a,
Schwooze.
and she's like,
It's a shade. So yeah.
That was one of the big debates
Yeah.
on set. So every time they was in the room, they'd be like, there's the
The schwooze.
Shez.
That's kind of one
So
of the
it
reasons
had
I
to be. It had to be a chaise because you sleep on it that night, and you.
That's why it's a
couldn't
chaise.
So you couldn't sleep on a chair that night. So that is what that
You
item
know, in
is
the South,
called. I
we
think.
call it a sofa bed. Pull out, couch.
Sofa bed is.
A sofa bed is different.
I don't know.
Oh, it's totally different.
I don't know.
A
the
chaise
chaise-
is like
Well,
a
it's
long
definitely not a
chair.
shoes.
No, it's not.
A schmooze.
John is wrong. That's the only
Yeah.
thing I know about.
But you
the
wish I
word
was right.
shrews.
No, yeah, chaise doesn't have a pullout. I guess that's the difference.
You're fancy.
It's got the little swoopy arm thing, doesn't it?
Oh
Maybe.
yeah.
Am I wrong?
It can have a swoopy arm.
All right. Well, my
These are the
chaise.
smartest minds in the world right now. What is it?
And they have random
We should
applause.
just Google it, I guess.
Yeah, Google it.
We'll Google
You
it.
can Bing it. You'll get in trouble here, though.
Yeah. Nobody's binging it. Not a single person bings it. What Q&A are they doing right now? They're not. Just the clown from It. That's it. It's just him in a balloon. And a bunch of scared
Any
kids.
questions?
Yeah.
Kill me.
I'm now just picturing somebody on a stage over there with a balloon, talking, like, with a little face drawn on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So scary.
Oh gosh. Okay, so the whole movie takes place in L.A. Where did you actually film this? Was it actually in L.A.?
Yes, it was actually in LA, on the west side of LA.
And whose house was that?
A lovely gentleman named Bill.
It used to be Cindy Crawford's house.
Yeah, it kind of has a
And
Hollywood history. that
Jennifer
house.
Garner's before that, right?
Yeah. I found the house, I Googled Spanish houses on the west side of Los Angeles because I knew that's where we wanted to shoot the movie, and I found it on a real estate listing, and we left a note in their mailbox.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's ridiculous.
I didn't know that.
That stuff doesn't happen ever.
I mean, I was watching
really
this.
like
and-
Yeah, very lucky.
wow. Yeah.
Crazy good luck.
And I mean, I guess talking back to the family lineage, like everything your parents did too, was set in these massive, just beautiful houses. Is that
Yeah, they got to build theirs.
really?
Yeah.
That's-
Back in the heyday of the romantic comedy.
Wow.
They would build their sets. So, which is the nice thing about building your sets is when you write a scene and you say, she enters this way and he enters this way, and then you can build that and it tells your story through the sets. But what was amazing about this house was I had storyboarded the whole movie, and I was so nervous to find a location because you write things that he fixes this and this, and they look through that window. So I was like, I'm gonna have to find a house full of windows because so many. It's kind of a visual motif in the movie is people are looking through windows and seeing things happening. And then I got to this house and the windows were all in the right places. I was like, this is it. This window house.
And it had a guest house too?
And it had a guest house, which was great.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so was it empty? Did you stage it, or was anything like original? This guy Bill, you said? Was any Bill's furniture make it into the movie?
I don't think so. We
s-
fully
yeah,
furnished
you
it.
dressed the whole
Yeah. Some of Jennifer Garner's curtains
Yeah.
are in the movie.
thing. Thanks, Jen.
Does she get a credit? And thanks to Jennifer Gardner for providing curtains.
For having good days, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess. What happens to the Bill wasn't living there. What happens to the person when you're displacing them? For how long did it take to shoot this?
No, he doesn't
didn't live
he
there,
doesn't live
yeah.
there.
No.
He was about to renovate it. And I think we got to him right before he
Right
was gonna-
before, yeah.
beautiful
It was
house,
very
though.
lucky that he didn't live. That's also an unusual thing. Usually you have to put that person up and when you inconvenience them in such a way, but he didn't actually live there. I don't know. Something something in the stars was
Yeah.
aligning
Wow.
for
Very
that.
special.
Yeah.
Supernatural is what it was.
Because it was the kids
Like
bred.
the kids.
Yeah, like the kids, yeah.
How long did you? How long were you shooting?
30 days, I think.
You shot the whole thing in a month. Less than
Yeah.
that. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right.
How long do you think it takes to make a movie?
I don't know, green screens and stuff. Takes like 8 months. And,
Yeah.
you know, you got like.
Actually, when we wrapped, my mom was like, this is like, I have 5 more months after this. It was amazing that I think everybody really.
I made a lot of movies in
Yeah.
30 days.
What else?
30, 35, almost every movie my entire career.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Impressive.
Movies that don't have like monsters and blasters and aliens, superheroes. You can actually just shoot people writing and like talking and yeah, it usually takes about 30 to 40 days.
And with rehearsal and everything too?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I did not know that. Learned something new. Thank you. Audience, if you guys have questions, there's 2 mics in the aisles. You can begin to line up here and ask anybody anything, whatever you would like to. Oh, yes. Oh, we got one already. Hi.
Hi guys, thanks for coming. Before I ask my question, John, I actually saw your mom perform stand-up comedy weeks ago at the comic shop.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, she told a story about how she like messed up your camp clothes.
This is crazy. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Great is what
Yeah.
it is.
You want me to comment on that? Yeah, my mom, first of all, my mom is 57 and just started doing stand-up.
So great.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. She's gonna freak when she finds out that you asked this. And yeah, my mom tells this story about when I went to sleepaway camp. My parents are divorced, and my dad's very type A, and my mom's a total mess. And Dad called her. He was like, "You put John's name on all the clothes, right? You labeled his name on all the clothes." My mom was like, "Oh yes, of course, of course." And she like immediately hired somebody to put the labels on. But when they were all done, it said my name on the front of everything. So it was like down my zipper and across my hat and stuff. Yeah, my mom's whole joke is when I got back, I was crying and I said, I didn't make any friends, but everybody knew my name.
Got a lot of laughs.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But my question is for Reese. So,
That was just her opener.
Wow,
really funny.
that's great. You should do an open mic at the comic show with my mom.
so I'm also a really big reader. In fact, Pacific Standard's last movies have been like my favorite books from the last 5 years. So it's been really exciting. But my question is, so how do you know, kind of, I'm a very big believer that the books are always better than the movies, but it's been really enjoyable to watch all of my favorite books in the last couple of years been these like amazing movies and shows. So how do you know kind of when you're reading something that this is going to translate really well to the screen?
That's a really good question. It's a little complicated. It's just, I think because knowing what people will actually buy and turn into a movie, if it's two sisters during the French Revolution, it's just not going to be a movie. It's too expensive. It's too niche. So I think I try to find things that are universal, kind of relatable, and my main directive has just been have a woman at the center of it, doing something, sort of telling another aspect of the female experience. So Gone Girl is like, I don't know, is she psychotic? I don't know. But it's something that took an idea of the perfect girl and kind of flipped it on its head. And Wild, I love the idea of a woman versus nature, because you see men versus nature all the time, right? And then I never really thought about what's the movie where women are up against the environment by themselves. So it's just stuff like that, things that feel fresh and new.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. Over here.
Hi. So Reese, you talked about the availability of roles for men and women. Over your 20 years in the industry, how have you seen that evolve? And do you feel like we're at a point in time where there's a lot of momentum for roles for women, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a better time than ever. But I have to say, when I started, it was a good time for women's movies. Women were the stars of their own movies. At the time I came up, I was lucky I got in a window where I made Legally Blonde and Sweet Home Alabama, and I could be the lead of a movie. I think it's harder now, and particularly in movies. You don't see women being the star of movies very often. I've heard people say it straight to my face. We have one movie that has a woman starring in it this year. We don't need another one. But the great news is, with all these streaming services and the new platforms, now they need content more than ever, and that creates opportunity for women of all ages, women of all color, people. So it's really kind of broadening the spectrum and creating more roles.
Thank you.
Yeah, back over here.
I want to thank you guys for being here. Hallie, you mentioned earlier that you felt like you were making a feel-good movie, and I feel like we all need that right now, so thank you. And then Reese, I just wanted to say, I was thinking yesterday while I was watching the movie, you're one of my favorite actresses. What would I say if you're actually here and actually at Google? And I was thinking about how you've had this history of performing in Election, in Cruel Intentions, all of these women who are not just strong, but sort of strong in ways that people don't want them to be or don't quite understand, and that they're successful in ways that don't fit with expectations. And I think that's sort of a really interesting message for the women in Google right now, many of whom are in roles that people don't expect them to be in or don't quite trust them to be successful in. And it's your particular history of performance is an interesting one right now, and I'm not shocked to see this many women here in this room and screaming for Legally Blonde and Crazy Flick, although she was left out of your recitation. So I just wanted to thank you for that, and also, hi, Jon. Your mom sounds cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. I feel like I have so many questions to ask Reese because I feel like we would be best friends if we ever really.
I think we probably would.
Yeah. But you actually said something that changed my whole like question dynamic before. You said there was a script that you read that was like really crappy for the woman. Did that ever get made?
Yep. Sure did.
Could you say
With an
Did it do
Oscar-winning
well?
actress. in the part.
really? Are you able to say?
No,
Okay.
I'm not.
Did it do well, or that
did
got
really
nominated
well.
for an Academy?
No, it did not.
Oh, okay.
It was a terrible movie.
It-
But, you know, I've always had a thing where, and back to your point about being a woman who does sort of unorthodox things, I turned down so many parts where, like, I got a lot of opportunity after Legally Blonde to play the girlfriend in superhero movies. Girlfriend. I was like, why would I be the girlfriend when I can be the lead? I would rather take less money, be the lead of a movie, show a girl that she can be the center of her own story, than be a very wealthy girlfriend and you know, because it doesn't move the needle for me. And at a certain point, it's all about, I also have I had a little girl when I was 23. So it kind of shifted my perspective of like, what do I want her to see on film? I grew up with Holly Hunter and Deborah Winger and Diane Keaton and Meg Ryan, and those were events for me when they had movies coming out on a Friday night. Like, that's what I wanted to see, a woman who's figuring it out. Like, she doesn't know what the next step of her life is gonna be. And I just think that's what drives me every day. It's why I have a mission, just to create those parts for myself, for other women, for female directors, to have that opportunity to tell women's perspectives. Because if we don't see women's perspectives, I mean, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Women in women's films treat men differently. The men treat the women differently. That's a narrative that's important. And I would say the same thing about women of color, women of different generations. You know, all different perspectives need to be represented, and it's just enough. I've had enough of the same people telling the same dang stories. Like, if we don't see some new perspectives, society can't change, and we can't have different conversations. And that's how I feel about it.
Wow.
But I don't really have
No, not at all.
And thank you to Jon.
Also, hi, John. Yeah. And my mom, wherever.
and Karen.
And Karen, of course.
Back over here.
Hi guys, my name is Brooke Taylor, which is actually a character in Legally Blonde, which made me super popular in 5th grade. So and a question I got asked on my first day at Google is if I could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be? And I said Elle Woods, and that made me even more popular. So thank you. Thank you very much for the Glamour article. I'm sure that's been circulating quite a bit. You have a lot of ambitious women in the room who are strong, not because they're strong women, but because we're women, and that's what women are. Can you speak a little bit to the article and just give us some advice and even talk about how it's been received if you've gotten any sort of feedback?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for saying that. I worked really hard on that article. I probably did 30 drafts because I do think it's really important what you say. But for probably like 3 years ago, I was asked to give a speech at this Glamour event about ambition in women and why that's considered a negative trait in women. And they did this study at Columbia that identified it as a negative trait in a coworker, as a female coworker, that she's seen as selfish or self-serving. And I thought, why has that become such a negative thing? I was always ambitious, even as a little girl, and I didn't know you were supposed to hide it, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this new Harvard study that women who are seen as ambitious hide it if they're single. And I really, that just drove me up a wall, because I thought, run away from anybody who doesn't like your ambition, particularly a guy or a partner, because it should be encouraged. I mean, and it's not this self-serving thing. It's like most women who are ambitious have a bigger goal. We're community leaders, we're strong family leaders. We can change a lot and create a lot of change, but we're stymied because of this stigma around being ambitious. I think it's why a lot of women don't run for office.
Yeah.
As we look at women and go, oh, of course she wants to win.
Right.
Why shouldn't she win? She's probably gonna help us. Right. You know, and I think we have to change it. We have to start talking about it, and I have had a lot of response from men at big companies who wrote me and said, I never thought about it that way, and I've heard women talked about in boardrooms and stuff as, boy, she's climbing, and he goes, I'm going to change the conversation. And I just hope, yeah, you're talking about your daughters, you're talking about your sisters, you know, we need women. We're 50% of the population. We're 50% of the change.
Yeah.
You know.
Amen, sister.
But I don't have any opinions. Oh, really?
Back over here.
My question is also for Reese. It's about Big Little Lies.
Okay.
So I'm actually born and raised in Monterey, California.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's rare. And I wanted to ask you about the decision to change the setting of that book to Monterey because it feels really important to the story. So why Monterey? Why like that story in particular?
Oh, that's a good question. Because it's set in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
The writer said it there, and we decided to Americanize it because I wanted to be in it. So there's that, and I do a terrible Australian accent. And then Monterey, because we wanted it to be in a coastal town that wasn't Los Angeles, because that has its own identity. The writer was David Kelly, is from that area and lived in that area. And the director, Jean-Marc Vallée, wanted to use water as a metaphor for the dark, mysterious unknown that lies inside of us, the secrets that lie underneath the calm. And he did, I don't know if y'all have seen it, but the last episode is you see why he's always filming the ocean. And so yeah, it's a metaphor.
Wonderful. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Hi, guys. Thank you for being here. I'm Katie. So my question is a little interactive in nature. Reese, it's directed towards you, but I would love it if you could maybe use Jon as your student.
Wow. All right.
So as I'm sure you guys have heard, as well as a lot of us in this room have experienced, dating in New York is notoriously pretty tough.
Oh gosh.
A girl or a guy could use all the help that we could get. So I was wondering if you would be able to give us all a refresher on the bend and snap from Legally Blonde.
I do the bend and snap?
Maybe
Jon
you
has to
can
do it.
Jon
Oh, you teach me how to
Yeah,
do it.
it's stand up.
As your
Okay, you want me to teach Jon the bend and snap?
yeah.
Okay. Well, first you have to know why you're doing it.
Sure.
You're trying to get someone's attention.
Right, motivation.
Okay, right. So you pretend that you drop something on the ground.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, there it is. And so then you lean forward like this,
Yeah.
and then you snap. Yes! Good job, Jon. Good job, Jon.
Well done.
The pause.
The pause!
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't know how I follow that question. We've talked a lot about the importance of having really powerful, strong female characters represented in the narratives we tell on screen. But there's so much work that goes in, whether that's on the part of producers or writers or cameramen on the backside of things to make those characters appear on screen. What advice do you have for, there are lots of creatives that are at Google who outside of our 9 to 5 are like myself, are screenwriters or work on the production side or the editing side. What advice do you have for trying to get your material in front of the right eyes in an industry where there are so many barriers to entry, especially for women?
Right. Do you want to take that?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, the best way to get your content out there is A, to have a very original voice and to not be afraid to tell your specific story, because then it feels very you. And I think, like Reese mentioned, it's a really good time to be a content creator, I think, because there's so many platforms. So, you know, I think just not being afraid to cold email people, send your material out there. I mean, I know it's idealistic, but I am a big believer in good material gets found and gets recognized, you know, and like Reese mentioned, there's not a lot of strong roles for women, and so if you are, I hope, writing those kinds of characters, I think it will be recognized. And, you know, from YouTube to Amazon to Netflix to, I think, you know, all of these places have their own content now, and well, not, I don't know if we're, or Google, you know, wherever you want to send your material to.
YouTube Red.
Yeah, YouTube, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be my advice.
And just start making stuff. Don't get stuck, you know? Even if you make a short with your friends or you get everybody together on a weekend and make a short film, you're getting actual film and experience under your belt. And there's so many places, like New York Film Festival has a new program for female directors. Warner Brothers is doing a pilot program for female screenwriters that want to be directors, that you write a 10-minute short and submit it. There's a lot of those kinds of things. And yeah, you just start making, but don't get stuck, you know, or over, I don't know, I just see a lot of creative people get stuck. And it's good sometimes to work in a group too, because it pushes you out the door. You have a partner.
Yeah, and when I was first starting out, YouTube was how that's how I got my agent, was from making sketches with buddies,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I think it is, I mean, even though the statistics are terrible about being a female director, I do think because of people like Lena Dunham, people think that young women might, be great at what they do, and I think she's paved the way for a lot of young women for people to recognize. So I do think it is, in some ways, a good time to be, a female content creator.
Thank you.
Cool. I looked down and looked up, and there's 5 million people asking questions again. Yeah, Molly, hi.
Hi. Hi, I'm Molly. Super excited that you're here, all of you. Thank you. So my question is for Reese, but I think you can, Hallie and Jon, you can both answer it. Reese, you've done so many different movies, different genres, production company, Draper James. What's next? What is one thing you'd love to do? And Jon and Hallie, what's next for you? What's your next big project, something you would like to do outside the box?
Well, I just extended my production company into digital and mobile programming, so I'm going to be capable of making more short-form content, because I do think that's the first step to finding new female voices.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'm doing anything outside the box, but I'm definitely going to keep trying to do what I did here and make, comedies, which seem to be fewer and further between now, and put women at the forefront of them. So, yeah, more of the same.
I'm working on a show with my writing partner for Comedy Central at the moment, and then I'd like to do more good movies. Keep working. It'd be nice. This is my first, really. So our first. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We have time for a few more questions.
Hi, thank you all for being here. So today there was an article in the New York Times about Rotten Tomatoes. Basically, there's a bunch of people in Hollywood who are putting blame on Rotten Tomatoes for movies not doing well. Basically saying when these reviews come out and they get an aggregated score, that kind of predicts movies not doing well at the box office. If the critics are saying it's bad, and it's surfaced on different sites like Fandango, or even when you search a movie on Google, which is relevant to all of us here. So I'm curious what you think about that, if that really is something that's relevant, if that's something we can lay blame for.
I don't know about blame. I mean, I think Rotten Tomatoes is owned by Fandango, I think.
Yeah.
So, it's one and the same. For me, I think it's a part of the equation, but I don't think the actual audience cares that much about it. And I think Rotten Tomatoes is largely men. So we made a movie, about a woman, and so I don't know that they're necessarily... I don't know. For me, I wouldn't look at it. But I wouldn't judge a film by it. But I am aware that it is a big part of things. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think more men look at the scores too. Like my boyfriend would say, "Well, that had a," and I'd be like, "Who cares?"
They've gamified art.
Yeah.
I think it does have an effect in certain capacities. If there's something people really want to see, they're going to see it. But I think it can drive a movie that might be on a bubble to people waiting till later. And certain movies like this, we're coming on the box office. We need people to show up and see the movie. And if you want more movies with women at the center of them, you have to show up and buy the tickets. Or it's hard. It's data that the studios look at, and they think, oh, well, that one didn't do good, and this one didn't. So they don't make more of them. It's just a numbers game. But I will say, Ann Patchett wrote this amazing essay about, don't let other people make your judgments for you. Don't have your own opinions about art and books and music. I have a 14-year-old son, and he'll be like, well, I heard it's not good. And I'm like, yeah, but who did you hear it from? And maybe you guys don't have the same taste. And maybe you're not interested in the same thing. So I really encourage people out there, form your own opinions, have something to talk about, see movies. I loved seeing movies and having a different opinion than other people, because that's what makes you you. And we've taken that out a little bit by reading too many reviews or listening to too many people's opinions on Twitter and stuff, I think.
Thanks.
Okay.
Cool. All right, probably 2 more questions. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chloe. So all this talk about the quote-unquote strong female character got me thinking. This is a question mostly for Reese, but I would love to hear Hallie's thoughts too, if you have any. Obviously, I love Legally Blonde, but one of my favorite movies of yours actually is Freeway. And it got me, I was thinking about the how a lot of people see women in action movies, and how just a woman like punching someone or shooting someone can be like just enough for people to give them the strong female character label. But obviously there's like, you've been doing so many rom-coms and comedies and like Big Little Lies, and I was wondering what you think of the difference in value of a like strong woman in a comedy versus like a family drama versus an action movie like Freeway, or like some more recent ones like Mad Max and Atomic Blonde.
Yeah, I mean, all of those, genres are great, and I think the more than like looking for strong or weak, and look, I answer that question because I think of myself as a strong person, but like, I'm just looking for complexity, because women just aren't good or bad. There's this whole rainbow of other things in between, They're complex and confused and contemplating things, and some of them are just plain strange. I don't know. Like, I want to see every color of the rainbow. I don't want to just see like, I don't know. Sometimes I think you just get watered down, and it gets watered down because they don't understand the complexity of the female brain, because you're not a woman writing it. So, yeah. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I don't see a ton of action movies. It's just not, as an audience member, my favorite genre. But I do think sometimes the women in those movies are considered strong because they're acting like men. And for me, the characters that have meant most to me, the ones that Reese has portrayed, are strong because they're complex and they're real. There's something real about them. I don't think you see a woman in an action movie and think, that's me. Just like her in Atomic Blonde. Even though it can be super entertaining and great to watch, for me it's the relatability of a character that, if you see Reese on screen being strong and she's going through separation, that might give you, if I can do it too, and I think that's, for me, where the strength comes from on screen.
Thanks.
John, do you have a favorite genre?
Favorite genre?
Movie genre?
You know the right answer.
Not
right?
really. I'm not really into like superhero action movies. I do like smaller stories typically. Yeah.
Interesting.
But drama or comedy doesn't. I just finished Ozark. I thought that was real good.
Was really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that's
Cool.
my
Yeah,
thing.
I think. Thank you. Yeah. So we have time for one more question here.
All right. So first of all, thank you. Cruel Intentions, favorite movie of all time. So the best part of working at Google is our colleagues are incredible, and half of my meetings I'm like just in awe at how talented the people are in the room. So I was curious about who you guys have worked with where you've had that moment of like, oh my God, this person is so impressive. Like, who's the most impressive actor that you've worked with outside of Jon, obviously? And
I mean, Jon Rudnitsky.
Thank you. Well.
Gosh, I've worked with some really amazing, talented people. But yeah, isn't it great that you can be around people and you're like, wow. And the great thing about movies is it's a collaborative experience. So this movie was amazing. We had so much fun, and I loved working with all these people. I'm trying to think of like one person that I was like, oh my God, this person's so incredible.
or maybe like super intimidated when you found out they were like, I got this.
I got to work with Jack Nicholson once, and I could barely speak. And it got to his close-up, and he was standing there, and I just kept inching into his close-up. He goes, "Hey, kid, get out of my close-up." Because I'm a leaner, I tend to lean on people I like. Yeah. It's like, get away from me. But I was pretty starstruck about that. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
That's funny. Jon, have you, I guess on SNL too, you've had a lot of people come through. Like, have you experienced anything similar?
Well, I mean, obviously, on this movie, getting to work with these ladies and Nancy. At SNL, specifically, Larry David is my comedy hero, so getting to work with him was pretty awesome.
See the movie. It comes out in theaters tomorrow, September 8th.
Such excellent questions.
Yeah, can I
Really
say thank you? You guys have been
Wonderful
great.
questions.
That was so
So
fun.
fun. Oh my God.
Yeah, help me thank you for coming. Thank you.
So funny.
That was awesome.